All right, let's dive into something a little different today. We're going deep into a Russian language blog. It's called KolaShi. This blog covers a bunch of topics like, making money online, cryptocurrency, and security. But today's focus is their post on crafting. Well, they say top-notch content that can withstand any Google update. It's fascinating to kick into how another part of the online world views content creation. You never know, we might pick up some unique strategies.
It's a great point. We often get stuck in our own content bubble.
Oh.
And forget about the diverse approaches out there. This blog, KolaShi, seems particularly focused on a user base interested in.
The financial side of the internet.
A lot of the posts are about online earning strategies, which adds an interesting layer to their content advice.
Yeah, I noticed that too. The post titles definitely have that make money online vibe. But the one we're diving into today is titled Akrisa igla aja unshevimi kutendo, which translates to creating authoritative content that meets Google updates. Published just yesterday, January 8th, 2025.
And that title alone raises a question. Does the concept of, authoritative content translate across cultures? Is it perceived the same way in Russia as it is, say, in the U.S.?
That's a great question. Maybe we'll find some answers as we go through this. So the blog post lays out a 7-step process for creating this authoritative content. But before we get into that, can you give us a quick breakdown of what authoritative content actually means in the digital world and why is Google so obsessed with it?
Sure. Think of it this way. Google wants to give its users the best, most trustworthy information. Authoritative content is basically content that's seen as credible, reliable, and accurate. It comes from the sources that are considered experts in their field. Like, if you're looking for information about heart health, you'd probably trust an article from the Mayo Clinic more than a random blog post, right?
Right, because the Mayo Clinic has that reputation, that history of providing reliable medical information.
Exactly. And that's what Google is trying to gauge with its algorithms. It wants to rank websites and content that demonstrate that level of expertise,
authority,
and trustworthiness. So this KolaShi blog post is essentially giving its readers a roadmap to building that authority in the eyes of Google and their target audience.
Got it. So let's get into this roadmap. Step 1, as they lay it out, is keyword research. Pretty standard stuff, right?
Yes and no. Keyword research is fundamental to any content strategy, but I'm curious to see if the tools and approaches they recommend differ from what we typically see in English language content. They mention using tools like Google Keyword Planner, but do those tools capture the nuances of the Russian language and search behavior?
That's a good point. Maybe there are specific keyword research tools or strategies that cater to the Russian market that we're not even aware of.
Exactly. And this is where that cross-cultural perspective becomes really valuable. It forces us to question our assumptions and consider that best practices might vary depending on the language and the target audience.
Okay, so step 1, keyword research, but with a potential Russian twist. What about step 2?
Step 2 is all about understanding user intent. They even use the English term user intent, which suggests this concept is becoming more globally recognized. It's about figuring out what the user is really looking for. When they type in a particular keyword, are they seeking information, trying to buy something, or just navigating to a specific website?
Hold on. I think we need to unpack this user intent thing a bit more. For our listener, it seems pretty crucial to their strategy.
You're absolutely right. So imagine someone searches for best running shoes. Their intent could be informational. They want to read reviews and comparisons. Or it could be transactional. They're ready to buy and want to see product listings. Understanding this intent is key to creating content that actually satisfies the user's needs.
So it's not just about targeting the right keywords, it's about understanding the why behind those keywords. Makes sense. What's next on this list?
Step 3 is content structure. They emphasize creating content that is easy to read and digest using headings, subheadings, bullet points, making it scannable and user-friendly. This aligns with what we know about good content practices. But I wonder if there are any cultural preferences at play here. Do Russian readers prefer a particular style of formatting or layout?
Interesting. It's making me think about how even something as seemingly basic as content structure can be influenced by cultural factors. I hadn't really considered that before.
And that's what's so fascinating about this deep dive. It's a reminder that content creation isn't just about following a formula. It's about understanding your audience on a deeper level, including their cultural background and preferences.
All right. I'm already seeing how looking at content creation through a different cultural lens can be so eye-opening. Let's keep going. What's step 4?
Step 4 brings us to, the actual writing process, they advocate for clarity and simplicity. No jargon.
Yeah.
No overly complicated sentences. Just straightforward, easy to understand language. This is interesting because it suggests that the trend towards concise, clear communication is global.
Yeah. That resonates with what we see in the English content world as well. Readers everywhere seem to appreciate content that gets to the point.
Absolutely. They also highlight the importance of making the content engaging. They suggest incorporating real-life examples, stories, maybe even a touch of humor to keep the reader interested.
I'm really curious about that humor aspect. Does humor translate well across cultures? I mean, what might be funny in Russian could fall flat in English, right?
It's a great point. Humor is notoriously difficult to translate. I'd be curious to see examples of the type of humor they recommend using in online content. Maybe it's more universal humor, or perhaps it's very specific to Russian culture.
This is making me want to learn Russian just so I can understand those nuances. Okay, moving on. Step 5 is all about editing and proofreading.
Right. They emphasize the importance of carefully reviewing and polishing your work. This part is pretty universal. Typos and grammatical errors can damage your credibility, no matter what language you're writing in.
They even suggest using tools like Grammarly, which, I'm guessing, has a Russian version. That would be pretty impressive. It makes you realize how much technology is bridging these language barriers.
It really does. And it underscores the point that many of the core principles of good content creation are universal. It's the execution that might differ based on cultural context.
All right. Step 6 takes us into the realm of SEO optimization. Here's where we appease the Google gods, right?
Exactly. They talk about strategically using keywords in the title, headings, and throughout the content. But they're also careful to point out that it's not about keyword stuffing. It's about using keywords naturally and ensuring that your content is truly relevant to what people are searching for.
So, basically, the same rules apply. Whether you're writing in Russian or English, don't try to trick the algorithm. Just create high-quality content that genuinely answers user queries.
Right. And they also stress the importance of crafting compelling meta descriptions. Remember, that's the snippet of text that appears below your page title in the search results.
It's your chance to grab the reader's attention and entice them to click on your link, like a mini advertisement for your content.
Precisely. And they suggest using keywords in your meta description, but also highlighting the unique value proposition of your content. What makes your article stand out from the competition? Why should the reader click on your link instead of someone else's?
Got it. So, it's about balancing SEO best practices with the art of persuasive writing. And finally, step 7 brings us to content promotion.
They recommend using a mix of channels, social media, email marketing, collaborating with other bloggers. It's about getting your content in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Again, pretty standard advice.
Right.
But I wonder if the specific platforms or strategies they recommend differ from what we're used to.
Yeah. Are there Russian equivalents of Twitter or Facebook? Or are those platforms dominant worldwide? And what about influencer marketing? Is that a big thing in Russia?
These are all great questions. It would be fascinating to dig deeper into the specific tactics they suggest for content promotion within the Russian online landscape.
All right. So we've gone through their 7-step process, but the blog post also has a Q&A section. That I thought was really insightful.
I agree. It digs into some of the nuances of creating authoritative content. What jumped out at you?
Well, the first question is very basic, but crucial. What is authoritative content? And their answer goes beyond just saying it's accurate or well-researched.
They emphasize the importance of presenting information in a clear, engaging, and easily digestible way. It's not enough to just have the facts. You have to present them in a way that resonates with your audience.
Right. And they also talk about citing sources, acknowledging different viewpoints, and avoiding unsubstantiated claims. Essentially, it's about building trust with your audience by demonstrating that you've done your homework. You're not just throwing opinions around, you're backing them up with evidence.
Exactly. It's about transparency and intellectual honesty, which are essential for building credibility and authority in any field.
Another question that stood out to me was, how often should I update my existing content? And their answer surprised me a bit.
They suggest revisiting your content at least once a year, or even more frequently, if there are significant developments in your field. That's interesting because it highlights the dynamic nature of authoritative content. It's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process of keeping your information up to date and relevant.
It's like tending a garden. You have to constantly nurture it, prune it, and make sure it's thriving. Otherwise, it starts to wither and lose its value.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the ongoing effort required to maintain authoritative content. And it speaks to the importance of staying informed about the latest trends and developments in your field.
Okay. One more question from the Q&A that caught my eye was about promoting your content after it's published. Do they offer any unique insights here?
They touch on the importance of engaging with your audience, responding to comments, and fostering a sense of community around your content. This is particularly interesting. Given the cultural context, are Russian audiences more or less engaged online compared to other cultures?
It makes you wonder if there are any cultural norms or expectations around online interaction that might influence how you approach community building.
Absolutely. This is where that cross-cultural lens becomes so valuable. It challenges us to think beyond our own assumptions and consider how different audiences might engage with content online.
It's like a reminder that there's always more to learn, even about something as seemingly straightforward as content creation.
I couldn't agree more. And that brings me to the question I want to leave our listener with today. If this Russian blog is geared towards helping people make money online, what does that tell us about the motivations and goals of content creators in that space? Is there a different sense of urgency or a more entrepreneurial mindset driving their content strategies?
That's a really interesting question. It makes me wonder if the focus on monetization might influence the types of content they create, the topics they choose, or even the tone and style of their writing. Maybe there's a more direct, results-oriented approach in their content compared to what we might see in, say, a blog focused on personal development or creative writing.
Right. Perhaps there's less emphasis on artistic expression and more on providing actionable advice that can directly lead to financial gains. It'd be fascinating to compare and contrast the content strategies of Russian bloggers focused on online earning with those of English language bloggers in the same niche.
It's like we've stumbled onto a whole new dimension of content creation. It makes you realize how much we can learn by stepping outside of our own cultural bubble and exploring different perspectives.
Absolutely. And that brings me to the question I want to leave our listener with today. Think about your area expertise, your passions, and the knowledge you have to share. What would it take to create content that's considered truly authoritative in your field? What unique insights, experiences, or perspectives can you bring to the table that would make your content stand out and resonate with your audience?
That's a great question to ponder. It challenges us to think deeply about the value we offer and how we can translate that into content that truly makes a difference.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passion, expertise, and the needs of your audience intersect. And it's about constantly learning, evolving, and refining your approach to content creation.
So whether you're a seasoned blogger, a budding entrepreneur, or just someone with a story to tell, there's always room to grow and become a more authoritative voice in your field.
And who knows? Maybe someday we'll be deep diving into a blog post written by one of our listeners, sharing their unique journey to content mastery.
That would be fantastic. And if you're curious to learn more about the KolaShi blog, we'll include a link in the show notes, even if you don't speak Russian. It's worth exploring to see how other cultures approach content creation.
Absolutely. In the meantime, keep creating, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of content.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the world of information.